Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Report. I'm your host, Blair Andrews, as always, joined by my co-host, Hasan Rahim. Hasan, how's it going?
We had a lot of really good football today, and then we had a lot of not very fun fantasy results. And I'm glad that that Michael's here to help break it all down, man.
Yeah,
Definitely.
thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, definitely. Michael Hitchcock from his DFS work at RotoViz, he's been killing it on the DraftKings content over there. So, yeah, awesome to have you on. Yeah, I don't know, Hasan, where should we start? There was a lot of maybe disappointing fantasy results, but some pretty intriguing performances today. So
I actually want to start with the guy who's like essentially the biggest disappointment of the week, in my opinion. Will Levis. He completed 19 to 39 passes for 199 yards and a score in the Titans' 26 Week 10 loss to the Bucks. I mean, he's scoreless now in 2 outings since that Week 8 start. He had 4 sacks this afternoon. He could have probably taken more. I don't know if you guys are watching the game or not. He just didn't have any time to do anything behind that offensive line. And he still looks kind of like the part, right? So like a little bit of weirdo scouting is that he looks a little bit like the part. His decision-making seems to be okay, but like questionable talent, I guess, just because he just hasn't seemed to be getting it done. You know what I mean? Like 2 weeks, we've seen him now twice just get completely blanked. And this one was against a Tampa Bucks team that Stroud lit up. Michael, I know you wrote him up in your DK, as a contrarian play. So I want to get your take. Like, what is Levis' issue, man?
I would say the offensive line's a huge issue. The Titans have had just a myriad of different combinations on the line, and their offensive line was terrible heading into the year. Regardless, it's bad. And Levis is a rookie. He's going to take some bad sacks. He's going to hold the ball too long. But I mean, as a Titans fan, I couldn't be more excited that, he actually looks competent and, he revived DeAndre Hopkins' fantasy value pretty quickly. It's just the offensive line. They're just horrible. They have offensive linemen that make false starts 2 plays in a row. Like, it's bad, man.
Yeah. It's frustrating though, because they really do kind of lack a little bit of talent, right? Like, I think before the show you were discussing this, but like it's imperative that we bring this up. Is they rely a lot on that play action to get stuff done, and with Henry looking like dust and no one really biting on Tajay Spears, it really doesn't seem that they have anything of value going on, right? Like, it's they're definitely bereft of playmakers. Full disclosure, I had 2 overs on Nuke today. His over 4.5 catches and over 59.5 receiving yards, both sailed under. It just was disappointing, if only because I kind of had hoped that those lines were shaded a little too low, especially after what Stroud did. But maybe it was just me being stupidly optimistic. I think some of the issues that are plaguing the Titans, in my opinion, is the fact that they are bereft of like skill players, right? They went ahead, they moved away AJ Brown for Treylon Burks, who is the AJ Brown of not being on the field, I guess. That's pretty much the best thing I can say about him. The guy, I feel bad for the concussion, but even prior to that, the guy just never showed a similar ceiling. And they just left with a bunch of these guys who are, they're also rans, and they're also just stall drives like crazy, right? Chigo Okonkwo, Kyle Phillips, Nick Ikine, Westbrook Ikine. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. These are all make a player type names and player stats when you go into like Madden. Right. So I wanted to get your take on. Ooh, a good comment. AJ Brown to Traylon Burks is like going from Justin Jefferson to Jalen Reagor. Yeah. Yeah, and then it's obvious that like the Titans are tanking. So I wanted to really get your take on Levis. Like, do you trust him at all in one quarterback leagues? Like, who would you rather have?
I think that's hard because, I mean, you got guys like Josh Dobbs who are playing really well that will run. Sure, he's been picked up, but he's looking like he's his old self again. I don't.
Yeah. So to break again, so you said Josh Dobbs, and who was the second one? I think we missed that one.
Kyler.
Kyler.
He's mostly been picked up probably, but depending on the league and the size and everything. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like they just don't have the passing volume. And I mean, even they were down in this game and he still didn't throw, a ton like you would expect. So yeah, I don't know if I'd really be running to the waiver wire to pick him up in a 1 QB league.
That's good to know, considering I started him in 2 must-win spots and guess who's losing both.
So I mean, Desmond Ridder played like 1 quarter, and he outscored Will Levis in fantasy today.
Yeah, and Tyler Heineke wasn't playing particularly well, but I think he got hurt. I don't even want the Falcons. I hate them so much, man. Yeah. I don't even want to get into that. But we had a couple of good questions here in the chat. One is, where do you guys rank Javonte top 12 running back rest of the season? I don't think that's like he's that high for me. I definitely don't. I don't really have him as in terms of. I don't really have a rank on him, unfortunately. But he's definitely got to be like top 18. I just don't know where he fits right now in my head.
Yeah, I would say pass on ranking him top 12.
Yeah,
but he's definitely trending up though, and we know he's a talented guy that you definitely want to keep on your bench. He could pop.
And then we have a trade question. Trade away Fields, Mike Evans, and James Conner for Josh Allen. This actually leads us pretty nicely into the next guy on the show sheet here is Mike Evans, who got 6 of 10 targets for 143 yards and a touchdown. Right. This is his second 100-yard effort off the year. But his touchdown was the 6th. He's been out targeting Chris Godwin this afternoon, and Baker's kind of been playing functional football. So this is sort of a 2-part question. One, would you do that trade, like moving all those assets who are Justin Fields, Mike Evans, James Conner for Josh Allen? And second, would you, with Mike Evans, what do you think is there enough there on meat on the bone for Chris Godwin to actually eat at all this season?
I don't know about Godwin. I feel like the way Baker plays, he's just like wanting to chuck it up, man. And when he gets near the red zone, it's like he locks in on Evans. So, I mean, I feel like he's like a solid floor PPR because they only throw to 2 guys, and Rachaad White gets some targets, but I don't know if Godwin has a ton of upside, if that makes sense.
No, it makes complete sense. And of course, this would happen to Blair and I, who really need him on one of our FFPC teams. He's like our wide receiver 2 or 3 there, which is, don't even ask how we got there.
Evans is just the most fun player for fantasy, where he can just go off for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, and then he speeds up the game because they're all deep ball bomb. He's just one of my favorite players. He's awesome.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. The thing with Evans is, it just makes you wish that they had Jameis back under center, just because
oh yeah! Shout out Chris Olave. Chris Olave's back.
Yeah, exactly. The second they put Jameis in, Chris Olave from the dead, he shows back up. He's
catching balls down the field like he is supposed to do, like he was in college.
Yeah, like it was just pretty much like this is why we were drafting Chris Olave in the second round.
Yes.
It just sucks so much that they persist with Derek Carr, man.
Yeah. And I feel
Assuming
like this year,
Yeah,
assuming Derek Carr is hurt for multiple games, which I'm not sure I have completely been following his status, but where would a guy like Winston rank for you compared to someone like Levis?
I would definitely have Winston above Levis, I
yeah,
would say, just because he's just so fun for fantasy. Like him and Sam Howell both being like starting quarterbacks this year just makes fantasy so fun because they have that like Ryan Fitzpatrick kind of vibe to them. I've heard that around.
the DGAF.
Yeah, and it's just like they just don't care and they'll just throw it up and they'll throw a bunch of times, they'll throw interceptions and get into shootouts. Like that's just the most fun fantasy to me.
Yeah, I think this is probably too hard of a take, but I'm gonna say it anyway. I would genuinely take Winston rest of the season over Jared Goff.
Wow,
That's a hot
Goff,
one.
Goff kind of plays a similar kind of style in some ways, I think. But yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah,
interesting because Winston definitely helped Olave. He seemed to help some of the receivers, but he didn't play particularly well himself. So there's kind of that dichotomy where you want Winston out there for Olave, but yeah, I don't
yeah.
know.
I
I
mean,
mean,
2
Levis
touchdowns and
obviously
2
hasn't
ints,
looked that good
right?
either.
I mean,
Say that
two
again?
touchdowns and he had 2 touchdowns and 2 ints. He had
Yeah, that's right.
122 yards, yeah, right. But like Olave had 9 targets, 6 catches, 94 yards in the score, right? And then A.T. Perry was actually a thing too.
Hmm.
He got like 2 of his 4 targets for 38 yards in the score, right? So I just think that there's like the value that like Jameis brings, like kind of what like Mike was saying earlier, is that he speeds up the game, just having this guy throw these huge bombs, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. And if you're comparing like a guy like Jay Levis is never going to get the freedom that Jameis will have. Like Vrabel is never going to let him just like throw it a bunch of times and like get into those situations where he is just going to be able to air it out and throw interceptions and then just go back in and do the same thing. Like Vrabel is just too good of a coach to let that happen.
yeah, it's interesting because Vrabel, like, I hate to pick on the Falcons again, but like, what did Arthur Smith really learn under Vrabel? Like Vrabel's really been able to coax a hell of a lot out of this like Titans team,
Yeah.
right?
Arthur Smith can design an awesome running game when he has
Right.
Derrick Henry.
Yeah, and he's been doing pretty well with Bijan had a decent day today, but let's see, what did
He's been
Bijan do
doing pretty
today?
well with Tyler Algier, though.
Yeah,
Which there's something to
he
be
has
said
been.
for that.
Yeah, but Bijan had 22 carries, 95 yards in a score. But again, just going back to Vrabel, right? Like he's kind of like Mike Tomlin-esque in that like he's able to get a lot out of an underperforming team, or like
Coach.
a on paper underperforming team, right? Whereas with, I guess, going back to Jameis, I think I'd much rather, like, again, kind of like you're saying, like he got that DGAF factor, and then 2, he probably has some of that that freedom, right? Like this is like the biggest trade that I was trying to will was Jameis Winston as a starter to some team, right? But on the other side of the ball, we got everybody's favorite Josh Dobbs, who completed 23 of 34 passes for 268 yards in the score, and the Vikings has been over the Saints. His only touchdown went to T.J. Hawkinson, who he connected with from 28 yards out. Dobbs also led this Vikings backfield in rushing. He rushed for 44 yards and another score. Right. So I wanted to get your take here, like with Josh Dobbs, right? Like, where do you have him in your head ranked rest of the season? When do you think we actually start playing him in DFS? Sorry for yawning.
I think it's price dependent, and I think when Justin Jefferson comes back, he's going to get really interesting. because you're going to have Hawkinson, you're going to have Jefferson, you're going to have Addison, and they can't run the ball like at all. And Madison left the game today. I think it was a concussion. I'm not 100% sure, but a ridiculous amount. This is exactly what we want for fantasy. I'd be looking at Josh Dobson, 1 quarterback leagues for sure.
I'm actually trying to see if he's available anywhere right now, and no, he's not.
Yeah, Sean actually picked him up in the one main event I'm co-managing with him, so he knows something. Got to get him early.
Yeah, and they get the Bears, or no, I think the Broncos, the Bears, and the Raiders the next 3 weeks.
One point of order or correction, it was actually Ty Chandler who led this backfield in rushing yards.
Was it?
Can we talk about Ty Chandler?
Oh, just you barely pipped him at the post, man.
Right.
Yeah,
Chandler is someone that I convinced Hasan to add when we either didn't have Keaton Mitchell available or something like that. And
no, we lost Keaton Mitchell. He was our number 1 priority. So we picked up Keaton Mitchell in our main, but lost him in our FBC.
Yeah, that's
he's
right. But we got Chandler
like
in that one, so it's all good.
He's like a poor man's Kenneth Walker. Feels like he tries to bounce everything outside and hit a home run, but just doesn't have that same gear that Walker has.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually got a lot of 20th round exposure to Ty Chandler. So
me too.
I'm optimistic that kind of what Corbett guy said. Ty Chandler, the best ball shares might be back from the dead. Yeah, man. I would love for nothing more than Ty Chandler to come back and revive some of my teams. I'm in a dogfight. I'm not gonna lie. I have a lot of 4th place teams right now that are on the cusp of cashing or min cashing or what have you. And if Ty Chandler's on them, hey man, whatever it takes.
Well, it's not hard to look better than Alexander Madison. So even if Madison is healthy, maybe this is enough for Chandler to have earned the role, right? He got the touchdown, so.
Yeah, I feel bad for Madison though, right? I feel bad for Madison, the player. I don't feel bad for the Madison slappies who are drafting him in the 7th round, right?
Yeah, I mean, that one, you definitely feel for him, the person. He's literally the only guy on this offense that's not succeeding.
Yeah, it's actually a little ridiculous, right? I mean, they the one thing that does give me pause, at least a little bit, is because the Vikings ran under such a big lead early. Jordan Addison could have had a bigger game today. 7 targets, 4 catches, 69 yards, no scores. TJ Hawkinson has been an absolute freak of nature without Justin Jefferson. 15 targets, 11 catches, 134 yards, and a score. So, Michael, I wanted to get your take. How much of a bump down do you think either of these guys get when JJ's return? I mean, we know he's coming back. Suddenly the Vikings are streaking. They look like they could be, an NFC wildcard team, whether we like it or not, right? So I want to get your take there.
I think Hawkinson for sure will be a little bit of a cut below when Jefferson comes back from a target perspective. But I mean, tight end is just garbage, man. He's going to have these weeks where he pops off and he, catches 7 or 8 balls for, 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. Those weeks are going to be in his range of outcomes. So you just got to kind of take the lows and ride the highs with Hawkinson, I feel like.
It's probably a little different with Dobbs under center, but it is worth noting that Hawkinson had, 11, 8, 9 targets in September in 3 straight games with Jefferson on the field. So I think there's maybe, at that time, of course, Addison wasn't getting the targets he is now.
Yeah, that's the thing.
There's you maybe see those targets come down a little bit more for Addison when Jefferson returns. On the other hand, Addison is a rookie. His first 3 games or whatever, you're not necessarily expecting.
You can't hold those against him, right? That's the thing. Yeah. You can't hold them against him.
Right. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I can definitely see there being some games where we still get big Jefferson, if Jefferson comes back, still get big performance from him, and Hawkinson can earn those targets. But with Dobbs, I definitely don't, it's going to be hard for all three of these guys to have good games for sure.
Right.
Just to stay with the Vikings just for a little bit, right? I am curious about Chandler's availability, and I kind of I'm just gonna pull up the RotoViz strength of schedule app because I am curious because now is kind of the time where you want to start, if you're a contender team, you want to start looking into the future, right? Actually, Blair, this might make a little bit of sense if you're able to pull it up on your screen, because it looks like Minnesota actually it doesn't matter because it looks like Minnesota has a neutral schedule. They got a cupcake with Denver. After the bye, though, that's where things get interesting for them. Vegas, Cincinnati, who are also poor against the run, then Detroit, and then Green Bay. So there is hope that that our boy Ty Chandler can hopefully do something for us. Yeah, I did rest of the season just to pull that up. Yeah, historical anomalies in the chat. Dobbs is also targeting TE at a high rate with the Cardinals. Yeah, this is actually very true because Trey McBride was getting just a ton. So you see, to me, when you're looking at Minnesota's running back strength of schedule, that's actually like it's just soft sledding the second you get to the fantasy playoffs. Michael, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think he's the guy that you definitely want to pick up and, redraft, manage leagues and hold and see how it goes, especially this week if Madison's going to be out. But I think the Vikings are just going to be throwing the ball. Like I feel like they've been doing that all season. They know where they know that's their strength. I feel like Chandler doesn't have a ton of upside, but I think he could have some games where maybe he scores a touchdown or two.
Yeah, I mean, against Denver, you would almost be disappointed if he doesn't have a lot of yards and a touchdown at least. So, but beyond that, I think you're probably right. They're looking to throw the ball. Definitely some winnable matchups, though. Some matchups where you could see Chandler having some good performances, and if they keep winning games, then hopefully we see Jefferson sooner.
I think I correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe Jefferson was close to coming back. So I do think we might see him next week. I don't know if they're going to hold him out for the entire bye to the bye week, if that makes sense. Although the bye week's in a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah. How about that comment? Ty Chandler man.
Yes.
Is he the biggest bust in the first two rounds of drafts? I would say definitely, right?
And the guy you're discussing here is Tony Pollard, right? So
yeah,
I do.
My God, man, they won by 30 points, and he had 5 people.
Yeah, it was just one of those games where I was going to get away from him, but like we've spent a season making excuses for Tony Pollard, right?
Right.
He really. It's sad, but he's looked a lot closer to Zeke than we'd like to admit. And it's not, I don't know how much of it's Pollard's fault. I don't know how much of it, like what is happening here, because he just never looked like, why does Rico Dowdle look like Tony Pollard last year? And Tony Pollard looked like Zeke. Like, Blair, any thoughts?
No, I mean, it's problematic that you do have Dowdle going out and having a good game in the same environment where Pollard can't get it done. So that kind of suggests that it's something about Pollard specifically, not necessarily the offense. Yeah, it's hard to really say what might be going on because, I mean, we at RotoViz, we were kind of skeptical of Pollard because of his price. It's not that we didn't think he was talented, but his price was a lot for a guy who hadn't really shown he didn't have the upside of the guys who we typically like to draft there, for sure. And I mean, showing that now, but you still expect he would be able to do a little bit more than this. I mean, I think somebody in the comments said something which I think is right, which is basically they're trying to use him the way they used Zeke, even though his specialty or his strength has always been as a receiving back. And so kind of getting him out of that role into something that he's not as well suited for has been kind of a disaster.
Yeah, that's, it's a shame, but it's like, this is how it goes sometimes, On the other hand, I want to discuss a guy who you talked about earlier, Michael. Sam Howell. He completed 29 of 44 passes for 312 yards and 3 scores. And the Commanders has lost to the Seahawks. He had a 51-yard touchdown pass to Brian Robinson, which is actually kind of nice. If you check it out, he rolled out, found Robinson behind the defense for a short completion, and then Robinson sort of turned on the afterburners and just took it over for a long score. He also had Howell also threw for 2 more scores in the fourth quarter. He had one to Antonio Gibson and De'Ami Brown for that 35-yard touchdown late. It's just the way it goes as they went on to lose. But you mentioned it. Like, it's very nice to have like a true gunslinger in Howell. But I wanted to get your take on why no Terry McLaurin or Jahan Dotson. Like, what was that all about? The two guys who you wrote up in your DFS article. So I wanted to get your take there.
That not having those touchdowns go to those guys. It was a very fluky game, I feel like. When it came, I mean, because those guys have been getting the targets for the most part. I think Dotson had 12 catches over the last 2 weeks, and pretty sure he had 0 today. So that seemed pretty fluky. Brian Robinson, though, he was on the 0 RB list, so shout out Sean for that.
Yeah,
I
don't have enough.
Love seeing Robinson get this kind of usage. That was, I think, kind of a sneaky part of the thesis on Robinson, is that he might actually be certainly a better receiving back than we think, and maybe even better than Gibson, although Gibson looked not quite as good, but also looked decent. Was there something going on with Dotson? Like, he only had 2 targets in this game. I didn't watch it. Any reason for that?
No, I didn't see any injuries or anything on him. It just didn't seem like he was getting targets today for whatever reason.
It feels frustrating, but it goes back to this conversation we had in our FFPC main event chat, which is like the last second switch from Dotson to Foreman was Curtis Samuel's back, right? And they just sort of seem to spread it around quite a bit. Just trying to check and see who got the targets here, because it's really weird to see De'Ami Brown pop up on your box score, right? Like, that's the weird one. And McLaurin still has 8 targets, 4 for 33, not particularly efficient. Curtis Samuel, there's your canary in the coal mine. 6 targets, 2 catches for 6 yards. Like, what? Like, why are we wasting? Historical anomalies is right. It's just a weird game. RB is leading in receiving yards most of the game. I mean, realistically, you can say that for a lot of games, right? Like, I think I had Jared Goff over 23.5 pass completions, and I believe some friends of mine also had Justin Herbert over pass completions. 5 offensive touchdowns in that game. Both of them went under by the hook. So we got, it was a really fun day of football. It was just really frustrating if you're a gambler or a fantasy player, because, when you're looking at these box scores, like, you would think, oh man, like, maybe my guy did something, and it's just like nothing came of it. On the flip side, a guy who compiled a little bit of, some who really kind of came alive towards the end was DK Metcalf. He caught 7 or 12 targets for 98 yards. He made multiple plays, but his final 2 catches, those are the big ones, right? with the game tied 26 each, and with less than a minute to go, Metcalf hauled in a 17-yard catch on third down to keep that drive alive, and then caught a massive 30-yarder to put the Seahawks in range for a game-winning field goal. Metcalf actually hasn't really boomed of late, and none of these receivers really have. And I think some of this has to do with JSN coming on. But Michael, I really wanted to get your take here. Like Metcalf rest of the season, Lockett rest of the season, JSN rest of the season. Can you rank these three for me?
I'd say Lockett, then Metcalf, then JSN. Lockett has been like the most consistent all the way through. It feels like and I feel like their offensive line is healthy now, so you're starting to see them more at full strength. I think JSN is awesome. He's my highest exposure player on Underdog. I don't know if it's going to happen. It seems like he makes these mistakes where they throw him these little bubble screens and he drops the ball, and I think that's kind of limiting them from unlocking him and giving him more of a workload. I think he's got a decent floor right now, but I think if he does really, really come on, I think it's going to be at the very end. I don't think it's going to be any time in the next few weeks.
It does seem like they're making an effort to get him involved, right? I mean, I think he had 3 catches on their opening drive and then only won the rest of the game. But
seems like when he gets a drop, it seems like they just kind of go away from him for a while. He had one on, I think, the first drive last week against the Ravens, and then he had one again today. And they're like, little bubble screens. So they're just like concentration drops, not passes you should be dropping.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, I guess I'm encouraged that they are trying to get him involved early in the game. But yeah, it would be, like you said, I mean, it's frustrating, I guess, both from, in terms of him dropping those easy passes he should catch, and then also frustrating that the Seahawks don't really trust him after that. So
right.
I think the most frustrating thing has been like Geno Smith's massive regression, man.
Mm-hmm.
Like this year he has not been able to support a sustained performance for all 3 of these guys.
Right.
Or even the top 2 guys, realistically, right? Like it's really been Kenneth Walker, who really, I mean, in all honesty, like he really put it doesn't come through in the box score, but he did a really good job of putting the team on his back. He had 19 carries for 63 yards, and he had 1 massive long receiving touchdown. He really has done a damn good job to hold off Zach Charbonnet. Charbonnet had 6 carries for 44 yards today, and then he had 5 targets for 4, and he caught 4 of those for 18 yards. Right? To me, it's interesting that Charbonnet has taken that receiving role away from Kenneth Walker, and now it's just a matter of forcing a timeshare on the rushing. I want to get your guys' take over there. Like what are you doing with this backfield?
It's a good question. Charbonnet looked really good, and him getting this workload is maybe not surprising since it's not something Walker did that much in college. But on the other hand, Walker with the 64-yard reception is making a case to keep him out there on passing down. So I think it's going to be a 2-headed monster the rest of the way. I don't think there's going to be a clear winner here. I mean, Walker is still going to be the starter, but Charbonnet is going to continue to eat into his workload. That's my guess. I don't know if you have a different take, Michael.
No, not really. But I think Walker is one of those guys that, like, in managed leagues is going to be like super frustrating, because when he doesn't have those big plays and they're splitting the work 50-50, 60-40, whatever it is, he's going to have those like 6-7 point PPR games, and then you're going to want to bench him. And then when he goes off for 35, you're going to have him on the bench.
Yeah, fun comment here by David Philippi, who says Zach Charbonnet on the bench outscores both King Henry and Travis Etienne in his lineup. Yeah, man. We touched it at the top of the show, but Henry looking mighty dusty. Maybe this is the year we get back to even on fading Derrick Henry. I don't know.
Oh, just wait till he's on. Just wait till he's on the Chiefs next year.
Oh my God, no. But yeah, just to bring up another two-headed backfield, not on the show sheet. So he's going to throw you a curveball. Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery, right? Gibbs had 14 carries, 77 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Montgomery coming back from an extended layoff, 12 carries, 116 yards, and a score. Nice to see Gibbs still get 5 targets, catching 3 of those for 35 yards. So, here's another one. Like, so with these two guys, what are you doing? Are you just going to be starting them the rest of the way? Plug and play, no doubt.
Montgomery, I think it depends on what your team looks like, but Gibbs, I mean, lock it in. I feel like it's getting to the point where the Dolphins were with A-Chain after those first couple weeks. Like, you can't put that back in the bottle. Like, he is electric, man. And he had 2 touchdowns, I think, because he had 2 touchdowns, I think, and they were both close near the goal line. And Montgomery's was a long touchdown, which is super weird, but like, Gibbs is, I think, slowly but surely taking over. And as the season closes, he's going to be the guy getting all the good touches.
I had a really good redraft team that I kind of liked that had Bijan and Jameer Gibbs. And it's like 11th in the league that I'm in. It's such a disaster. It's such a disaster. Yeah, it is. It is nice though. Cause I don't have enough Jameer Gibbs in Dynasty, which probably means I should probably either consider more Dynasty startups, because I hate trading for him, man. Like, it's impossible to trade for him, and then everyone tries to lowball me where I have him. So it's really annoying.
What would you suppose you had Gibbs? What would you take in a trade that someone offered you?
It'd have to be like 2 firsts.
At least, right?
Right.
Yeah, like at least.
I mean, when you think about Dynasty rankings, you've got Bijan, you've got probably Breece Hall. You could maybe make a case for Gibbs after that, based on the age,
you can, right?
based on the ages of guys like CMC.
Yeah. This might be a hot take, but I think A-Chain's going to come back, and I think he's going to close the season on a freaking tear, and he's going to be the Dynasty RB1 heading into 2024.
Oh, that's a nice hot take. That would be really nice. I've got more A-Chain than I thought I did, and it's somehow not as much as I would like, which is a shame.
What do you think of this comment? Gibbs over Breece Hall in Dynasty?
Oh, no, I don't think so, man.
Yeah, I mean, Breece, I think the point that Cobra Kai is making, that
I think I like the point.
Yeah, the Gibbs' O-line is better.
So much better. So his team situation just a million times better. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is going to come back from an Achilles in like 3 weeks, apparently. So we'll see.
Man, we've said it before, but like, if there's one man who can defy science with bullshit, it's Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, yeah, I don't. Like, the thing is, it's so hard, because like, the thing that I'm going back to with Gibbs is like your comp, Blair, where you were just sort of like, yeah, he's like CMC 2.0, right? Like, it's CMC 2.0. Yeah, Joe King says we're 1 week away from naming H-Chan the best of those 3. Buddy, hell yeah. Like I just remember where everybody was going like, oh, you can't draft H-Chan. He's the number 5 running back on the team. You can't take him. And I was just like, all right, 15th round H-Chan, 16th round H-Chan, 17th round H-Chan. It was getting dangerous. You got dangerous, man.
I like
Michael,
this take.
What were you doing?
Oh, I got a.
Are we all gonna retire H-Chan? Yeah, baby. In BBM, you got 30 teams for H-Chan?
No, I have 30 teams total, and I think I have like 10 or 11 of them maybe have A chain on them, and
That's right.
they're all
Let's
looking
go.
pretty good. And
And he hasn't even had him contribute. I don't know. It's so weird to gush about a player who didn't play this week. Something that we rarely do. We could discuss Keaton Mitchell. If you guys want as an arbitrage, Hitchan, which is a take that I stole shamelessly from Scott Barrett.
that's a good
He
one.
looked the part today. He had like
Yeah, too bad they only gave him like 3 carries or whatever, and one of them was a 40-yard touchdown.
this the Gus Bus stuff is really getting to me, right? He had 3 carries for 34 yards and a score, and two targets for 1 32-yard reception, right? Like it's a little frustrating to see Gus Edwards get 11 carries and turn that into 24 yards. It's just a little frustrating. So I guess what I'm saying is, Blair, defend what your team is doing here to us.
You can't defend when you have a guy who basically every time you give him the ball, he gains 30 yards and maybe a touchdown, and you don't give him the ball any more times than that. Hard to defend that. They did give him 1 carry where he kind of ran up the middle for, a yard or something, and Cleveland was all over that. There was nothing to do about that. But those are the kind of carries you give to Gus Edwards when you're, this is a guy who, I think
They did this with Tyson Williams too, right? Like Tyson Williams, when he had those couple big games, they just didn't really give him the ball again.
Oh, and who was the other guy? There was another guy a few years ago where everybody in RotoViz really liked him.
Justice Hill.
Yeah, Justice Hill.
No, not Justice Hill.
The guy on the Ravens, though?
Yeah, a guy on the Ravens. What was his name? No, this is going to kill me.
We're not going to come up with it.
We're never going to get
Dobbins.
it. Was it Kenneth Dixon?
Oh, Kenneth Dixon, yeah. Oh,
that was way back though.
Now we're just. There's another one, like another guy who I can't remember right now.
I mean, they haven't had a guy with. Oh, right, Alex
Dixon
Collins.
Dixon was awesome with Flacco, I think, because they used to target him a ton.
Yeah,
Justin Forsett. Yeah, that's
Justin Forsett. Yeah,
all these guys going back. They haven't had a guy with Mitchell's athleticism, though.
No.
I mean,
not in
since
years.
Dobbins.
Right. Yeah, and it's a real shame there.
It's crazy because you have Lamar, which makes the running game like so efficient, and they just cannot find a competent running back. It's just crazy to me.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, it seems like Mitchell is the guy that they should be using in a lot more situations. I think, they also only threw the ball to him 2 times. One of them was in the end zone, a really long one that would have been a hard catch, but you would like them to get him the ball in space more.
Yeah,
more
that
creatively.
One got kind of tipped and he didn't bring it in.
Yeah. So yeah, it is frustrating that Edwards is still getting all these carries for 2.2 yards a carry. But I mean, he did get a touchdown too. So tell you what's the most frustrating is when the Ravens score 31 points and Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews give your fantasy team absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Second week in a row that they've done that for us, Blair. Second week in a row.
It almost doesn't seem possible. It's like,
I know, right?
It's crazy.
2 weeks in a row they've done this. You remember the team we looked at last time, our underdog resurrection draft that was in second place. After today, we're now out of the money. We're down to like 4th place or something. Thanks a lot, Ravens.
This is like it's frustrating. Well, it's frustrating because it would be nice to have a sweat on here, right? Like a public sweat on here. But man, it's really frustrating when like our entire strategy is built around those 2 yahoos. Hey, hopefully maybe Devontae Adams could get a score or 2 and like actually be the guy who we thought we were getting. But yeah, that's neither here nor there. Gonna try and let's discuss another highly efficient backup running back today was Devin Singletary. He had 30 rushes for 150 yards and a score in the Texans' win against the Bengals. He also had 1 catch for 11 yards. he was pretty much the workhorse with Dameon Pierce sidelined. He took full advantage against a pillow soft Bengals' run defense. The Texans were able to establish the run here, for lack of a better way to describe it, given the game script. I wanted to get your take here, Michael. Like, do you think we're going to see Singletary push Pierce, like especially when Pierce comes back? What do you think happens here? Like, do you think this is another one of those 50-50 splits, or do you think this is still going to be Pierce's backfield when he comes back?
I think it'll probably be closer to a 50-50 split. I mean,
Nice.
They clearly trust Singletary. For him, career high before this was 110, and his career high in carries was 23, and that was like 2 years ago. I mean, I wouldn't have this on my bingo card for 2023. I think it's going to be closer to a 50-50 split because I don't think Pierce has really been that impressive either. And I think the Texans are a team that's similar to the Vikings, where they just want to throw the ball. They just want to let Stroud do its thing, which is awesome because he's a rookie and he's super talented and they have good receivers. Just let him throw, man.
Yeah, this is a good comment by Cobra Kai again, where he says it's crazy how Pierce with no QB looked great last year. Now you give Pierce like an actual top 5 quarterback, and he just looks like such garbage. Like what a trap pick. Like I feel really bad for the people who are picking Pierce in retrospect, because their run out has been insane. Like you might as well just like, at that point you just gotta laugh, right? Like you think you're getting either whether it's like your process to get Pierce where you were drafting him was wrong, it doesn't matter, right? If you're drafting him for volume or whatever, but the fact that Stroud is as good as he is, right? And the fact that Pierce is getting you like less than nothing is ridiculous.
Right. Like there's no reason he shouldn't be having like as good of a season as, not that Mixon is having a good season, but I mean, he's scoring fantasy points, and Josh Jacob is like like a top 5. There's no reason that Pierce shouldn't be having a season like that right now, given how awesome the Texans have been.
Yeah, that's true. It's pretty rare, I think, to see these guys with such low efficiency numbers on such high-powered offenses. But on the other hand, Mixon does it every year, so maybe we shouldn't be too surprised. But yeah, I mean, Singletary is also on this list of the least efficient players. Although after this week, he probably won't.
He probably changes.
His name will fall off. But I think
last week.
Yeah, right. Given how bad Dameon Pierce has looked this year, I think it probably makes sense for them to work Singletary in even more going forward.
Yeah, and it's so weird when you look at this receiver core though, because it's like Nico Collins, Tank Dell, Noah Brown, like Noah Brown out of nowhere with 175 receiving yards today.
Right? Where was this when he was on the Cowboys?
Right. And why is he on all
receivers.
of my dynasty benches? He's on all of my dynasty benches except for the one best ball league that Blair and I are in together, the 14-teamer.
Oh, you have him in that league. That's a best ball league, right?
Yeah, that's best ball and it's 14 teams. That's why I have him.
Right. Yeah, 2 weeks in a row he's put up these big games. I mean, I don't know. Do we think this is legit? Is he just like Stroud's favorite target and they have a good connection? I mean, 2 weeks
Stroud
in a
is
row
just as good as my take. Stroud is just as good as my take.
I guess I'm wondering whether this is just an anomaly or whether Stroud unlocks Noah Brown and he's going to continue to be obviously not this good, but can we count on him as like the Texans wide receiver 1?
The phrase "unlock Noah Brown" is just so wrong.
So wrong.
But
yeah,
it feels right.
It's crazy that Stroud is like supporting like 3 like good fantasy receivers.
I think Noah Brown. I think Noah Brown was an early declare, like a true junior
I
out of
think he
Ohio
was
State.
too. I think he was.
He
Yeah,
might
that's
actually be
right.
good.
Yeah, he might actually be good.
He might be good. Yeah, that's actually I want to check that out now.
Was Pierce a prospect that we liked at RotoViz? He wasn't somebody that we loved, right?
Damian
Damian?
Pierce was not really high on our list, and I think even though he's been getting the opportunity, I think his performance generally over his career has kind of not exactly proven us right, because he has done some really good things, and obviously the Texans like him, but
Right.
his lack of efficiency, I think, is something that you could have seen coming from his prospect profile.
Right. Just very weird that he did well on a bad team and doing bad on a good team. It's very strange.
You are right in that Noah Brown was an early declare, but I'm just trying to check and see he never broke out, did he? Because he was an Ohio State guy.
Yeah, he never broke out. He never had a high market share. Sharing the field with at
It's a
that
little
time
difficult.
probably. I mean, it
And
was
Michael Thomas?
this is like prior to Garrett Wilson and stuff. This is, I don't know, was that Curtis Samuel on that team?
I'm gonna have to check now.
Yeah, I think Curtis Samuel was on that team actually.
Yeah.
We're just having a fun time naming a bunch of like former athletes. I'm trying to check to see. This entire podcast could evolve into that. I'd be pretty happy. But let me just see here.
Like he might have been drafted.
They had Braxton Miller. They had Michael Thomas around the time. Paris Campbell, Terry McLaurin, and then they also had Zeke. And then as you go along, they had other running backs, right?
I read
it's not like JT Barrett was able to really support all of them.
Yeah, right. I read that when the Cowboys drafted Noah Brown, it was because Zeke was like pounding the table for him. Apparently, he was that good in practice at Ohio State or something. I don't know. But
I mean,
hilarious.
Worked out for
Terry
the Texans.
F1. Terry F1 was there. Oh yeah, I forgot Curtis Samuel was listed as running back for them.
Right.
How does anyone even get like playing time on this team?
Right. And they have two more wide receivers that are coming out this year. Emeka Ibuka, however you say his name, and then obviously Marvin Harrison's going to be like the Dynasty 102 in rookie drafts. He's going to be like the top 3 pick in the reality draft, probably.
Oh yeah, easily. I'm just trying to check the 2017 Ohio State team. This is his last one, right? Is this the national championship team? No, this is the Cotton Bowl. I'm actually just looking it up right now. Apologies for the dead air, but now you got like, oh my god, this team.
I'm trying to think of which
this team is
be
ridiculous.
In contention for the Marvin Harrison sweepstakes.
So Noah Brown had to contend with Bears.
Bears are in contention.
Panthers.
Cardinals are no, not the Panthers. They traded their pick.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You're right.
So Bears are going to have 2 good picks. Giants, but they're going to draft the quarterback probably. So,
yeah, that's the Giants. I'm glad they've embraced the tank.
Cardinals could be fun.
Yeah, Cardinals could be super fun.
Yeah, the Cardinals. I mean, especially today, because like you were saying earlier, we should, and he's not on the show sheet, but let's just discuss him anyway. Like Kyler Murray actually looked good.
Yeah, that scramble at the end to set up that field goal, like that was that was vintage.
Kyler. Yeah, and that's awesome seeing this coming from a guy who last suffered an ACL tear, right? So he had like completed 19 of 32 passes, 249 yards, and in one end he also had like a rushing touchdown, 6 carries, 33 yards, and a score. So it's nice. And I mean, like I don't know if it's like a scheme thing or what, but he just force-fed Trey McBride the rock. 9 targets, 8 catches, 131 yards, no scores. Right? Marquise Brown was kind of disappointing. 4 targets, 1 catch, 28 yards. So I guess like from a everybody else perspective, from a you perspective, you mentioned that he like Kyler is someone who you want, but like just from a future look perspective, like how excited, like where are you drafting Kyler next year in best ball if he's able to finish the season out healthy?
I think it would depend on what the landscape looks like. If it looks anything like this year and he finishes as like one of the top quarterbacks and he's getting drafted in like the but I mean if he's a cut below in like that tier this year where like you had like Lamar and Burrow and stuff like that, I think I'd be more interested.
I think that's where he's going to be going. I think he's going to be going in the QB 6 to 9 range. Like I think you could see him going as a cut below. I think next year you're going to still see Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts at the top, and then I think you get Stroud up there, right? And then I think you get Lamar as well, and then after that, that's when you get the discounts.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Joe King asked a good question. Zero chance Arizona drafts a quarterback. That's the thing that I'm worried about, man.
See, I'm not that worried. I was for quite a while, but these last few weeks they really ramped him up and they were like, this is our guy, we're going to play him. Like they're 1-8 coming into this game. Like if they really didn't want him, and why would they play him?
That's true.
Like they're 1-8. They could have tanked and got the number 1 pick easily could have done that. So I feel like he is going to be the guy. And they had a whole new GM, new coach. So I feel like they definitely could have did that. And I feel like they're going to not have the number 1 pick now if he's going to play the rest of the way. So I think they're going to draft Marv if they can, which would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be pretty awesome. It's a good point. With McBride getting this kind of usage, and even after Kyler comes back, where do you have him not only rest the season, but maybe next season in best ball drafts? I mean, he was playing well with Dobbs, and if Murray can even elevate this offense a little bit, and McBride is going to be his number 1 target or something close to it, I don't know. I'm pretty excited about that.
Absolutely. Tight end is horrible this year, and it usually is horrible. I would say Kelsey, Hawkinson, Kittle, Andrews, and then after that, I feel like it's pretty wide open, and there's not many guys that can get 140 yards in 2 out of 3 weeks and catch almost 10 balls. Like he's top 5 easily.
Yeah, you have Laporta and McBride maybe as the next 2 guys.
Oh yeah,
Laporta.
Unless you still have Pitts pretty high, but it's getting harder and harder to maintain.
It's a little difficult. Today was a disaster, man.
Pitts is just so frustrating to even think about. It's the worst.
The issue with Pitts is that you have to always pay like a premium to get him, and then it's just the utility you get from owning Pitts offsets price paid.
Right.
Like it has to, right? Otherwise, you're not behaving. All
my economics. I forgot about Kincaid too. Joe King just shouted Kincaid out. Kincaid has been awesome.
Yeah, and you'd almost think that like this would inspire the Raiders to like turn to Michael Mayer a little bit because he was a fantastic tight end prospect. Instead, and let me just check if I've got this correct here. As we're sitting through the third quarter, just sort of started. Michael Mayer has 2 targets. He's got both for 12 yards. Devontae Adams is getting all the work. 11 targets, 6 catches, 86 yards so far. I guess Aiden O'Connell, isn't it? Huh? Aiden O'Connell.
Maybe he is it from the perspective of Devontae Adams, right?
Yeah, I don't know,
man. Get O'Connell in there to make sure Adams gets his targets and stops complaining, and then, the Raiders are 4-5, so I don't know if they're going to be in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes. But
Adams is going to force his way onto the Chiefs next year, right?
I hope, or the Jets. There was a rumor that the Jets there was actually a package and the Raiders turned it down. Aaron Rodgers is just getting his boys together. He's just trying to rip up New York City with the boys.
That would be amazing because that would make Garrett Wilson so cheap compared to what
I
he was this
know.
year in best ball drafts, and I would draft a ton of him.
I'd be back to sitting there with like 35% Garrett Wilson in whatever round I'm getting him.
Yeah. Him in the 10th round last year was like one of the craziest misprices in
Just recent memory.
best ball. Like that was
Yeah.
insane that he was that cheap.
It was
Zach
found
Wilson
money.
Wilson was the quarterback and all that, and there was all kinds of negatives, but I mean that was just a crazy price.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys want to talk about like McCaffrey's touchdown streak being broken, or a little bit about Deshaun Watson, who actually in the second half looked pretty good.
Like he looks really good when he scrambles and like moving and
Yeah.
evading pressure, but then he throws the ball and it just looks horrible.
It all looks bad, and he's still saying, "Oh, my shoulder isn't 100% right." Which, I mean, yeah, we get it. Meanwhile, Derek Carr is playing through an AC sprain, which honestly he shouldn't be, because the guy without an AC sprain isn't particularly great. So, especially compared to some of these guys. But I guess what's interesting to me is, in a league starved for good quarterback play, it's good to see Watson at least look halfway decent or halfway serviceable. They're able to at least push the Ravens, because these lopsided games where teams are able to take a huge lead and then just not push the other team at all, like the Giants against the Cowboys today, right?
Brutal.
Or the Vikings for the most part of the game until like Jameis came in, right? Like you're not going to get anything out of it. You know what I mean?
The Panthers just garbage.
Yeah, the Panthers with Bryce Young, you're just getting dead games on the slate, which is really frustrating, especially if you're in need of a big score, because then you're just praying.
Right.
I don't know. I wanted to get your guys' take there with either Watson, or what are your guys' thoughts on like McCaffrey's touchdown streak being snapped today?
Yeah, I think
that's another case of Jacksonville just not being able to push the Niners at all.
Yeah, and I thought that they would be able to at least put up a little bit of a fight, but they didn't at all.
Rolled over.
God, were they mispriced in the best ball market? That was like everyone's like team that was up on the rise. Everybody loved the Jags. Yeah, that's not looking so good right now. But
Jags and Lions.
Yeah, CMC though, man, his work, 16 carries. When you can score 20 PPR without getting a touchdown, I feel like
obviously a weird game with only 26 attempts, but how concerned should we be about, I guess, George Kittle only getting 4 targets with Samuel back? Is this he obviously had a big game despite it, with 116 yards and a touchdown, but how much do you trust any of these receivers on the 49ers going forward now that they're all healthy?
Managed leagues, I trust Kittle a ton because he's going to have his games just like we were talking about with Hawkinson earlier, where he can score 40, and when he only goes 3 for 30, it's not going to kill you, because most of the other tight ends in the league that you're playing probably aren't that good either. Ayuk and Debo is a different story though, because there's going to be games where they're really going to hurt you in managed leagues, and you just never know when it's going to be which one. But and CMC had the most targets. He had 10 targets.
Yeah, 10. Yeah, they just didn't have to throw the ball after that, right? 4 targets for Kittle, 3 targets for Ayuk, 4 targets for Debo. They just didn't have to do anything.
Right.
It's really that's why I just don't like it when these teams just roll over. And the issue is the Jags are a good team. This is a good team. We know Etienne's good. We know Christian Kirk's good. We know Calvin Ridley's good. We know Evan Ingram's good. We know Trevor Lawrence is good, right? Like, it's just really frustrating that this turned into a rout when it could have been a shootout.
I was curious, Blair, did I know in that article that you do the wrong read, you pop up like team metrics and stuff. Was Jacksonville rating well pressure wise against pressure on their offensive line heading into this game?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull that up. Talk amongst yourselves for a moment.
Yeah, no, I was just
the reason I was wondering that is because maybe they did look good and it was just a little noisy because now you have Chase Young and Nick Bosa on the same defense.
So Jacksonville's they were number 4 in pressure rate allowed going into this game. So 29% pressure rate. That's not the only really the only metric that really tells you about the offensive line, but pretty good. And the 49ers were 20th in pressure created by their pass rush. So it looks like it would have been a good matchup for the Jaguars. Adding Chase Young to that team obviously changes how you expect the 49ers defense to look, but you wouldn't expect it to be that drastic. So
right.
A little bit puzzling for sure. Yeah.
I don't know, man. I just don't think that I think Dan Bigsby sucks. Like every time this guy touches the ball, every touch to him is a waste. Where they drafted him was a waste. He really is a drive killer. It goes kind of full circle, right? Like he stalls, drives out. He sucks. So and I know this isn't proper like actual analysis, but there's no other way to put it. Because what it does is it takes the ball away from your real playmakers' hands and it's putting it into someone who is really just sort of should be used or played in a position where the team should be playing from in front to afford this stuff. He shouldn't be getting high leverage touches. He shouldn't be seeing high leverage targets. The Jags are not in a position to really afford these kind of. Yeah, they can't rest on their laurels, for lack of a better term, right? They're kind of clear off. They're one game clear of the Texans right now, but the Texans are streaking, and they're actually a lot better than what they seem to be, right? This is going to be a very tough division. I think I foresee next year, right? Richardson's going to be back. There's possibility that maybe Levis takes a step forward. Maybe he's not the future, right? We don't know that yet. But this is has a potential to turn into a very difficult division very, very quickly. And you'd think that the Jaguars would be trying to press their advantage, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what your thoughts are.
Do you think that this game kind of exposes that Jacksonville's weapons outside of ETN are not really that good? No. Like when you're putting Christian Kirk and a 30-year-old Calvin Ridley out there. Maybe you're
Kirk's
not putting...
good though, man.
Yeah, Kirk looked good today, 104 yards. But I mean, do we?
But he always has looked good.
Yeah, I guess
he's not a true WR1, if that makes sense.
Right. I feel like
are you putting Lawrence in a position to succeed with this wide receiver core? I guess is my question.
I think they're drafting a receiver in the first round this year.
Yeah. I mean, it's disappointing they didn't, right? Like, they didn't go more aggressive on wide receiver. Although it is, like, I do think the early victory laps in Calvin Ridley were wrong. But, like, I mean, Calvin Ridley's still very talented. He just still looks like a guy who took a year off the football field.
Right.
It's a shame.
And
they did attempt to address wide receiver. Like, they paid Christian Kirk $20 million a year. Like, they're paying him like a number one receiver.
Yeah, I mean, Ridley has looked good this year, but you do kind of think not only the year off didn't help, he's older than you would think for someone who's been in the league as long as he has, because he was he went to college late, like he was 20 before he started college. So he's an older receiver. There's just a lot of things that are kind of working against the Jaguars on the offensive side of the ball. So Yeah, I think I'd agree. They're probably in the mix for a round 1 wide receiver. I would hope.
It is positive that they're giving ETN the lion's share of the carries too, and the work. They clearly want to get their most talented players the ball.
Calvin Ridley bet his unders.
Calvin Ridley
That's
bets
funny.
on unders for receiving yards. He's going to make millions when he could have made it $100 million.
That's funny.
Yeah, but I don't think outside of that, anything else you guys want to talk about? Oh, Tyler Boyd, who had a pretty big game. 8 of 12 targets, 117 yards. This was ostensibly the result of T. Higgins being sidelined with hamstring, right? He did have a really bad drop, though that would have helped
That was
in the
horrible.
game. I feel so bad
won the
for
game.
him. Yeah,
They would have won
I
the
feel
game.
so bad for him. Yeah, because he really is a short-handed receiver. Like that's the weird thing is like he catches those. Wanted to get your thoughts there, Michael. Like anything to take away there, or
I think it's pretty normal when Higgins misses. Boyd steps up and gets a substantial target bump, and they were down in this game, so this kind of set up perfectly for him. I don't think you're really starting him in a managed league unless Higgins is out, though.
They play on Thursday, I believe, next week, so good chance Higgins won't be back in time. Obviously something to look out for, but they are playing the Ravens too, which could be a tough matchup.
Yeah.
That's a tough matchup anyway.
But
man, we're ready to week 11, dude.
Yeah, the rare
crazy.
good Thursday game, and then we got Thanksgiving the week after that.
And Thanksgiving. Oh my God.
All right.
Oh man, Thanksgiving is nice too, because we get Thursday, Friday, Sunday. Why no Saturday game?
Watch college
I'm just
football
looking
on
at the
Saturday.
future. Yeah, that's right. Well,
anyone else
I'm gonna miss it when it's over.
We need to talk about? Just trying to remember if anyone else did anything, but yeah, I think that's it. Thanks so much for hopping on, Michael. It was a blast having you on. You want to tell the people where they can find you?
All my work is at RotoViz, and on Twitter I'm FF_Hitch. Yeah, I'll come on anytime. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Definitely, yeah. Definitely be sure to check out Michael's work. He did highlight the Texans stack last week and ended up winning somebody else $1 million. So maybe one of these days it'll be you.
Yeah,
if you're reading. So. Yeah, thanks so much everyone for hanging out, and we will talk at you next week.